In 2017, a client walked into Rolls-Royce and asked them to build him a car that did not exist. Not a special color, not a nicer interior, an entirely new car, a body shape no one had ever seen, designed around him, and never to be repeated for anyone else. Rolls-Royce said yes. It took 4 years. The result was called the Sweptail, and it reportedly cost about $13 million. And here's the part that matters. That wasn't the end of the experiment. It was the beginning of a business. Because Rolls-Royce looked at that one commission and realized something the rest of the car industry had missed entirely. The most profitable thing they sell isn't a car. It's an empty space where a car could go. Since then, they've built the Boattail at a reported $28 million. Then the Droptail series, 4 cars, the first of which, La Rose Noire, came in around $30 million, making it one of the most expensive new cars ever created. 4.5 years in the making, for one customer. Now hold those numbers next to a different one. If you buy a normal Rolls-Royce Phantom, the flagship, the one that costs around $500,000, and you keep it 5 years, it will lose roughly 46% of its value, nearly half, gone. So you have one company, in one factory, where some cars are the greatest wealth preservation objects on the road, and others quietly hemorrhage $250,000 while parked in your garage. Same badge, same building, same Spirit of Ecstasy on the bonnet. That gap is the entire business. And once you understand what's really being sold at Goodwood, every strange thing about this company makes sense. Why the base car is almost beside the point. Why the factory is expanding for buyers who don't want a car so much as a project. And why the smartest money in the room isn't buying a Rolls-Royce at all. So let's take it apart. Not the ride quality, not the silence at speed, the money. Where it comes from, where it goes, and why the most expensive Rolls-Royce ever built was never really a car. Here's the reframe that makes everything else click. Almost every car maker on earth sells you a finished product. They design a car, they build it, they price it, and you choose from a menu. This color, that wheel, this trim level. You are picking from what already exists. The car was finished before you ever walked in. Rolls-Royce inverted that. At Goodwood, the car you buy is not the product. The car is the canvas. What they actually sell is the act of commissioning, the months of collaboration, the designer assigned to you, the process of turning something personal into an object. You are not a customer choosing from options. You are a patron commissioning a work. And the numbers show this isn't marketing language. It's where the money is. Rolls-Royce has built a global network of what it calls private offices. Invitation-only creative spaces in Goodwood, Dubai, Shanghai, and now New York and Seoul, where a client sits down with a dedicated designer and works. And commissions that come through those private offices run, by the company's own account, around 25% higher in value than ordinary orders. Not because the client is richer, because when you put someone in a room with a designer and give them time and permission, they build something more elaborate than any options list would ever have suggested. That is a staggering piece of business design. Most companies try to shorten the sales process. Rolls-Royce deliberately lengthens it, makes it more intimate, more collaborative, and the average order value goes up by 1/4. And they're betting enormous money that this keeps working. In January 2025, Rolls-Royce announced a £300 million expansion of the Goodwood plant, the single largest capital investment since the factory opened in 2003. Not to build more cars, to create space for increasingly complex, increasingly high-value bespoke and Coachbuild projects. A factory that opened making roughly 1 car a day is being rebuilt around the idea that the future isn't volume, it's depth. So burn this in before we go further. Rolls-Royce isn't trying to sell you a finished car. It's trying to sell you an unfinished one, and then charge you for everything you add. Before any of the money makes sense, you need to know what a Rolls-Royce actually means, because the badge covers 4 completely different financial objects. Tier 1, the standard car, a Ghost, a Cullinan, a Spectre, a Phantom, bought roughly as configured. Prices run from around $400,000 into the high 500s. This is a luxury car, and financially it behaves like one, which, as we'll see, is not a compliment. Tier 2, the bespoke commission. The same underlying car, but personalized through the bespoke program. Custom paint mixed to match something you own, a starlight headliner mapped to the night sky on a specific date, your family crest embroidered into the headrests, marquetry inlays, a clock designed from scratch. This is where the ordinary Rolls-Royce becomes something else and where the margin lives. Tier 3, the Coachbuild. Not a modified production car, a completely new body, engineered from the ground up, built for one client and never repeated. Swept tail, boat tail, drop tail. $13 to $30+ million and years, often 4 or 5, from first sketch to delivery. Tier 4, the historic classics. The pre-war Phantoms, the Silver Ghosts, the genuine coach-built cars of the 1920s and 30s. These trade as antiques and are priced by history and provenance rather than anything a showroom could quote you. And here's the thing to hold on to. The money behaves in opposite directions across those tiers. Tier 1 loses value, steadily and predictably. Tiers 3 and 4 hold or gain it. Tier 2, the bespoke commission, sits in the middle, and that's where the interesting argument is. Same badge on every one of them, completely different financial reality. Let's deal with the uncomfortable truth first, because it's the thing most people get wrong about this brand. A new Rolls-Royce Phantom loses roughly 46% of its value over 5 years. On a car that starts near $500,000, that is $250,000 of value simply evaporating. The Cullinan, the SUV, does somewhat better, around 40% over the same period. Push out to 10 years, and a Phantom has shed something like 73% of what it was worth new. Now, context matters here, and I want to be fair. Those numbers are almost exactly in line with the exotic large car category as a whole, around 46% for the segment. Rolls-Royce isn't uniquely bad, it's just normal, and normal at this price point is brutal in absolute dollars. Losing 46% of a $30,000 car costs you $14,000. Losing 46% of a $500,000 car costs you $230,000. Same percentage, wildly different pain. And this is the single most important thing to understand about the running costs of a Rolls-Royce. Depreciation is the running cost. Everything else is noise by comparison. Look at the actual annual bills. Insurance runs somewhere between $3,000 and $7,000 a year, depending on the model, your location, and how the car is used, with agreed value policies common among careful owners. Scheduled maintenance runs roughly $3,000 to $7,500 a year, depending on model, with big V12 servicing at the upper end. Tires are $1,500 to $4,000 for a full set. Add storage, detailing, leather care, and the incidentals, and a reasonable rule of thumb is to budget 3 to 5% of the car's value annually for total running costs. Stack it up and a realistic all-in figure, depreciation, insurance, service, storage, the lot, lands somewhere around $90,000 to $120,000 a year on a flagship car. And look at the composition of that number, because it's the whole lesson. The service, the insurance, the tires, all the things people worry about might total $10,000 or $15,000. The rest, the overwhelming majority, is just value quietly draining out of the asset while it sits there. Which sets up the obvious question. If the car itself is a depreciating asset, why does anyone treat a Rolls-Royce as a store of wealth? And the answer is that some of them genuinely are, but not the ones you can order off a menu. Here's the turn. When you spend money on the car, you're buying a depreciating object. When you spend money on the commission, you're buying something closer to a piece of art, and art doesn't follow a depreciation curve. Think about what a coach-built Rolls-Royce actually is. The swept tail. One car, one client, 4 years, roughly $13 million. The boat tail. 3 cars, around $28 million each. The drop tail. 4 cars, the first reportedly around $30 million, and the level of obsession involved is genuinely hard to process. On the Arcadia Droptail, the team spent 2 years developing the clock alone, then 5 more months assembling it, a single instrument with 119 facets of hand-worked guilloche. 2 years for the clock. Now, is a $30 million car worth $30 million? By any engineering measure, obviously not. You are not buying transportation. You're buying the only one of something that will ever exist, produced by a process that cannot be repeated, at a scale of craftsmanship that essentially no longer exists anywhere else. And that is exactly why it holds value. Scarcity plus provenance plus impossibility of replication is the formula for every appreciating asset on Earth. Fine art, rare watches, historic property. Rolls-Royce has simply applied it to cars. The company has been explicit that Coachbuild pieces will not be replicated, ever. Each one is a terminal object. Which brings us to the strange arithmetic at the heart of this business, and it's the one thing I'd want you to take away. The base car depreciates. The commission does not. So the more of your total spend that sits in the commission rather than the car, the better your money behaves. A $400,000 Cullinan bought roughly stock is, financially, a fairly ordinary luxury purchase heading downward. That same Cullinan with a deep bespoke commission, genuinely personal work, exceptional materials, a design story, is a meaningfully different object, and one that trades on rarity rather than on the used car market. Push that logic to its end and you arrive at Coachbuild, where the base car has essentially vanished as a proportion of the price. Of a $30 million droptail, how much is car? A rounding error. It is almost entirely commission. And that's precisely the piece that behaves like an asset. So the rule, stated plainly, at Rolls-Royce, the money you spend on the car goes down, and the money you spend on the commission goes sideways or up. It's worth pausing on why a commission carries that kind of value, because from the outside it can look like pure markup, like charging $30 million for paint and leather. It isn't. What you're paying for is time, and specifically the time of people whose skills barely exist anymore. Consider what actually happens inside Goodwood on a serious commission. Paint isn't chosen from a chart. It can be developed from scratch, sometimes mixed with crushed materials the client supplied, then tested and retested until it behaves correctly in every light. Wood veneers are cut so the grain mirrors perfectly across the cabin, meaning the pieces have to come from the same tree, sliced in sequence, then matched by hand. Embroidery of a family crest can run to hundreds of thousands of individual stitches. Marquetry inlays are assembled from thousands of separate wood fragments. And these aren't machine processes with a person supervising. They're hand processes, done by specialists, at a pace that has nothing to do with manufacturing efficiency. That Arcadia droptail clock, 2 years of development, 5 months of assembly, 119 hand-worked facets, is not an outlier. It's the logic of the whole program applied to one component. Now put that against the economics of a normal car factory. A mass-market plant measures success in units per hour. Goodwood, on the biggest commissions, measures it in years per car. Every hour a craftsperson spends hand-matching veneer is an hour that produces no additional vehicles. The cost structure isn't industrial. It's closer to a restoration workshop or an atelier. So when the price reaches 7 or 8 figures, you're not paying a luxury tax on a car. You're funding several years of highly skilled labor that produces exactly one object. That's why the value holds. You cannot mass-produce the thing that made it expensive. The scarcity isn't artificial, it's structural. And it's also why Rolls-Royce needed that £300 million expansion. Not for volume, for capacity to spend more time per car. A factory being rebuilt so it can afford to work slower is one of the stranger sentences in modern manufacturing, and it tells you exactly where this company thinks its money comes from. Let's make this concrete. Same buyer, same badge, 2 very different endings. The bad outcome. You've done well, you've always wanted the badge, and you buy a Phantom close to standard specification, say $500,000. Tastefully spec'd, but nothing deeply personal. You use it properly, because it's a wonderful car and that's the point. 5 years later, it's worth somewhere around $270,000. You've also spent maybe $50,000 to $75,000 across those years on insurance, servicing, tires, and storage. All in, the 5 years cost you north of $300,000. You didn't do anything wrong. You bought the thing you wanted and enjoyed it. But you bought the car, and the car is the part that depreciates. The good outcome. You come in through the private office. You spend real time on it. The paint matched to something meaningful, a genuinely original interior, materials and details that took months to resolve. Your commission runs well beyond a standard build, which is exactly the 25% uplift Rolls-Royce sees from private office clients. And when it's finished, what you own is not a used Phantom. It's a specific, documented, unrepeatable commission with a story attached. Those cars don't get valued against the general used market. They get valued as the singular objects they are, and the deeper and more coherent the commission, the more that's true. You still lose money on the underlying car, but a large share of your spend went into the part that doesn't behave like a car at all. And at the extreme end, the Coachbuild client isn't really in the car market. They're in the commissioning market, the same market as someone funding a piece of sculpture or a bespoke yacht. The droptail buyer waited 4.5 years. Nobody waits 4.5 years for transport. The gap between those two outcomes, on the same badge, comes down almost entirely to one decision: how much of your money went into the object versus into the making of the object. Which leaves the real question. If the standard cars depreciate hard, and the appreciating pieces cost 8 figures and take half a decade, why is the Goodwood factory expanding? Why is demand for bespoke setting records? Because for the intended client, most of the maths we just did isn't the maths that matters. Start with the obvious. At a certain level of wealth, depreciation on a car is simply not a meaningful event. Losing $200,000 over 5 years is a real cost to almost everyone watching this. To a client who commissions a $30 million droptail, it is a rounding error inside a rounding error. The depreciation isn't a loss to be avoided. It's a fee for a service, and the service is being delivered exactly as promised. But the deeper reason is that they're buying something the money genuinely can't get anywhere else. And I mean that literally, not as a figure of speech. The Coachbuild program is invitation only. Even with the means, you need Rolls-Royce to ask you. And the newest evolution, the Coachbuild collection, isn't even really selling a car. It's selling a multi-year program, rare access to the innermost design studios, gatherings in the world's most desirable destinations, a relationship with the marque that runs for years. The car is the artifact the relationship produces. Read that again, because it's the whole business. You are not buying a vehicle. You are buying a years-long creative collaboration with one of the last great craft houses on Earth, and at the end of it, you get to keep the thing you made together. And that's why the Coachbuild clients are described as collectors of one-of-a-kind opportunities rather than car buyers. The car is the receipt. The experience, and the standing that comes with having been invited into it, is the product. So the apparently irrational behavior turns out to be perfectly rational. Rolls-Royce pours £300 million into a factory not to make more cars, but to make more room for commissions, because the commission is where the value is. And the client happily eats the depreciation on the underlying machine because they were never buying the machine. So, can a Rolls-Royce make you money? Almost never, if you buy a car. Quite possibly if you commission something no one else will ever have. That's the whole trick, and it's hiding in plain sight in the difference between a Phantom and a Sweptail. One of them is a magnificent motor car that will lose you $250,000 over 5 years, and it will be worth every minute of it. The other is a 4-year collaboration that produced an object which will never exist twice, and which the world will price accordingly, forever. Same factory, same badge, same figurine on the bonnet. Opposite financial gravity. Because Rolls-Royce, in the end, stopped competing on cars a long time ago. Bentley makes a fine car. Mercedes makes a fine car. What Goodwood sells is something none of them are structured to offer. The chance to sit in a room with a designer and spend a year deciding what something should be, and then have 120 craftspeople make it real, once, and never again. So if you're thinking about it, the question was never whether you can afford the car. It's what you actually want to own at the end of it. Buy the car and you've bought a beautiful thing that gets less valuable every day you keep it. Commission the car and you've bought a story that only gets rarer, because the moment they hand you the keys, they close the file forever, and no amount of money will ever open it again.